12 o'clock. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us and taking time out of your day. I know we're kind of in this, almost we can go out and do things, but some of us are staying home. I'm glad to see nobody's wearing a face mask on the computer because I've seen that before. So I'm glad you're not. Freddie, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Darren Deese. I am with Eventology. Michelle, my partner Michelle and I, Michelle Gilmore, we wrote a book called Eventology, The Science Behind Nonprofit Fundraising. So I'm a co-author in that book. I'm also a full-time fundraising development and auctioneer. I see events from a little bit of different perspective than my partner Michelle, but we always agree on kind of the same idea and how we get there. So Michelle, if you jump in.
Yes, I think that's saying it lightly. Darren and I had fun writing our book, and it was published almost a year ago to date. So that's kind of fun. Since that time, we put together a series of workshops that used to be in person, and now they are here, virtual. I am also a senior director of development for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation and a professional fundraiser, coach, and co-author. So we're really happy that you guys joined us. If this is the first time you've been in one of our roundtable discussions, I want to kind of give you an overview of what we do. So we're going to kick it off. We have two special guests here, which we'll introduce in a minute. And in the meantime, we have a chat bar going. If you haven't done so, go ahead and introduce yourself and your organization in the chat. That way you'll also know where that is. It's at the bottom of the screen. You can just click chat and then type that in. And then anytime throughout the presentation that you have a burning question, go ahead and throw it in the chat, because we're going to dedicate the last 10 or 15 minutes or so to answer questions, and we'll have an open Q&A. There'll be a time when you'll even be able to come on screen if you want and ask your question, or even drill into one of the questions a little bit more with either one of our guests or Darren and I. Also, towards the end of the program, you'll have an opportunity to win what we call the hot seat, which is a 30-minute strategy session with Darren and I. It's on Facebook Live, and we'll take your event and we'll kind of jump into it and see if we can't give you some tips and tricks to make it really successful. So be looking for that link, and it'll be in the chat as well, and we'll talk about it towards the end. Darren, how about you introduce one of our special guests, and then I'll do the second one.
I would love to. Thank you, Michelle. So I would love to welcome, and Frank, I know you've got a bunch of friends and fans on our page already. Frank Goldstein is with Momentous. They are based out of Coachella Valley, but I know, Frank, you do events nationwide. I met Frank a few years ago, and I'm honored, and I thank you so much for joining us today. You're like the icon. You're my hero, and I loved our conversation, and I look forward to jumping more into that today. So ladies and gentlemen, Frank Goldstein, Momentous, producers of events and experiences. And I love that in your name, Frank, because it's all about the experience, whether it's a virtual, it's live streaming. We're going to talk about that today. And you do put on a very momentous experience, and a shout out to Frank. If you look at Callista, her background is one of Frank's events. Am I correct, Frank?
It is.
Yeah.
It's so nice to be here, you guys. Thanks so much for inviting me. Callista, that looks so awesome. I mean, what a great shot from this past November. So fun.
Good stuff. I'm jealous, Callista. I'm going to have to pull one of my events out now. That's so fancy. Our next guest is all the way from, where are you from again? Where are you calling us from, Joey?
I'm everywhere.
He's virtually, he is everywhere.
That's true. You are, for these purposes. Yes. You're in Baltimore, is that right?
In St. Louis.
St. Louis, sorry. So, and Joey Goon from Utopia Entertainment, and he's in St. Louis. I actually watched a video that he produced last week or so, and I was struck by his energy, a lot of the things that he talks about in terms of hosting a live stream event and the importance of the quality of the production, and some of the sound bites that I heard him say were right out of our pages, Darren. So it was fun to reach out to him to see if he'd be willing to join us today, and here he is. So we're happy to have you, Joey. Welcome.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Darren, you kick this off because I have a question that I'm going to prompt you with, and then I think we'll send it down the row. How does that sound?
Oh, I would love to. So again, thank you again for joining us. We're going to tackle, we've all heard the word virtual events. I think kind of everybody's kind of starting to lean towards that. They didn't want to, but I would love to see your individual, everybody, again, we're going to ask you to join in on the chat bar over there. I would love to get your definition, your personal definition of what you think a virtual event is. I've seen so many different perspectives, so many different thought patterns. So if you would, in the chat bar, take a second or two here. Just give me your definition, whether it's a silent auction, an online auction. There are so many different opportunities. If it's a virtual run, a poker event, whatever it is, paint and sip. Love to get your opinions, because we're going to talk about that in depth and to great detail. Thanks to Frank and Joey for joining us on that conversation.
And Darren, if I could take a minute while we're all typing that in the chat, we're going to go ahead and launch a quick poll. We have 3 polls that we're going to be sending out today. I'm doing a little data collection from these webinars, and I'm pooling the results together, because I think something that's important right now is research on success, right? We want to hear how things are going for others. We want to find out, are these virtual events, are these hybrid events that are coming up soon, when we'll be able to be together in person even a little bit. And some of the numbers that we've been seeing are all over the place. They're blowing them out of the park, or, ooh, wasn't such a great success. So we want to get a few data points from you while we have you right with us. And if we can launch that first poll, Abby, while everyone's answering their question in the chat. Have you hosted a virtual fundraiser? So anybody, if you have, and it was a success, great. Train wreck, not yet, but we have one planned for the fall or winter. Or no, we are waiting for in-person events to return. Too many unknowns. And then go ahead and hit submit.
I asked the question. I know you're doing the survey, so thank you for that one. But kind of on that virtual event question I asked, I see a few responses. There are a lot more of you on this call than the responses I'm seeing. So please get on that chat line and enter your definition of a virtual event. And I asked the question because it came up in a few conversations. You know, 3 or 4 months ago, when you heard something virtual, it was kind of like not a real thing. It was a virtual reality in a game. Now we're actually asking this, you know, we're using the term virtual event is a kind of an online gala, an online fundraiser. And I see, you know, one of the, Callista, you put in virtual event is, you know, getting supporters together at the same time using a virtual setting, which is Zoom, which is what we're doing now. This is a virtual meeting, but yeah, we get to see you. And there's so many definitions on that, but I think it really begs a lot of confusion. When I know I've sat in meetings with clients when they say, we're going to do a virtual event, we want to, but nobody on our board knows what a virtual event is. So there's this big unknown. And I know, Frank, you definitely have some thoughts on that, because you're taking a direction a little bit different going forward in 2021 outside of that virtual event.
Yeah, let's hear about that from you, Frank. I'm curious about what your opinion on virtual events are so far.
So I think the thing is that we've all been kind of building this plane as we've been flying it. That's for sure. The technology is changing, the platforms are changing, everything is changing constantly. That's the one thing I know for certain. The way I've been looking at this right now is I really want to return to live events as quickly as we possibly can. I think that we all do. One of the things that I think that we are going to see, and why this was really interesting to me, was with the hybrid concept, we may see smaller, let's say we get to the point where we are going to be able to do live events, and I'm hoping that we are going to be able to see that, you know, as close into 2021 as possible. But we might see smaller attendees, you know, smaller groups of attendance groups, and at that point, and where we would have, you know, 500 people before, maybe we're going to have our very best 200, and there are going to be people who you would want to have had attended or would have wanted to have been there, but for whatever reason that would be that they would be unable to. What our challenge now is to bring that live experience to them across a hybrid platform. So we're doing something in person, and we're also being able to involve people in a virtual space as well and do them all at one time. And that's how we're looking at that hybrid experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just chime in personally with my population at the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. It's a highly vulnerable population. And so there's no time soon that we're going to all have a big 500, 1,000 person gala for the CF, even when a vaccine comes out right away, right? It's still going to be a while, but they're going to want to be a part of the experience. They want to be in the room. And so if we can figure out how to create a good quality live stream production,
Correct.
right,
Correct.
piece. And so that's why you both are here, because I think that exists, and I believe that's not going away. Darren and I talk about this a lot. Even when we're out able to go to live events, even when we're going, there will be people who will want to join, and now they've seen they can join virtually, and they'll probably, that trend is going to continue. I see that moving on. Don't you, Darren?
Absolutely, I see it moving on. I've spoken with many of donors that really have no interest in going to a, not necessarily going to a restaurant, but going to a hall full of people and sitting at tables with people. I mean, they love the people, and now they can all use Zoom. 2 months ago, most of those individuals did not know how to use Zoom, so they're willing to do it that way. And this is going to kind of go towards Frank's conversation we're going to have in a little bit. We're not just going to host our gala like we've done before, where there's a stage, Jim gets up, talks a little bit, executive director gets up, talk a little bit that. We've really got to think about the performance and the experience for everybody. If we're going to have, to Frank's point, if we're going to have a couple hundred people in the room, we've got to engage and offer them experience. But now we need to think more so what the experience looks like to everybody on Zoom, on YouTube, however we're streaming this live event, and how we're able to engage back and forth with those individuals and make them feel part of it. Michelle, you and I, you kind of opened that can the other day, trying to help people understand what that looks like. Because we're trying to explain that to board members, committee members, and people that just don't get what the whole virtual idea is. I'd like you to kind of share that and then open it up to Joey and Frank.
Okay, it goes to what Joey was talking about too, about seeing it. They have to see it so they understand it conceptually, right? Well, before we do that, let's share the results of that first poll, if you will. Let's see what we have here. Do you have the results to share with us? I think there's a button that says share results. It might. Okay, we might come back to that.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Pop it in. So Joey, I want to kick it to you for a second, because the note that I have on our kind of the next topic before we talk about the hybrid event specifically and the dynamics of that is, I want to hear a couple of success stories. What's working, what's not? What have you seen, Joey, recently? And then we'll go to Frank too.
Sure. So I think that, I kind of echo what Frank had said. We're in a really, really interesting time. And what we all need to remember is it's very easy to be paralyzed by uncertainty and fear when you turn on the TV and you look at what's going on in the world. And what we're seeing is organizations that are looking at this as an opportunity instead of hitting the pause button and throttling down are seeing exponential growth. And I just pulled up an article. I've got my computer in front of me because, I mean, this information that's out there is being updated by the second. And I just pulled this off the New York Times, Forbes, and the Washington Post, and philanthropy.com, that nonprofits that are adapting and evolving. So I'll just read the stat from their website, from Forbes. Philanthropy is up in 2020 by 28% over 2019. And we're not even through the year yet. We're only through the first 2 quarters of the year. Yeah. And so I just think that the organizations that are seeing success are not being paralyzed by the fear, and their ingenuity is not being stripped away from them, by what's going on right now. And
read that thing again. That is compelling. Read it one more time. That's amazing.
To the nonprofits that are adapting and evolving, philanthropy is up in 2020 by 28%, and they cite $7 billion total dollars raised for the 1.5 million registered nonprofits in the United States, which is just incredible.
That's incredible. Yeah.
That's amazing. And to second what Joey had just said, and I've been saying this really for an ongoing amount of time, every organization, now is the time for you to be in front of your donors, communicating, being able to be mission-centric, communication-centric, and now is the time, because any organization that's really not driving that narrative and driving that interface might really have a difficult time playing catch up when we are coming out of this. And that's why I think it's completely crucial and critical. So I completely agree with everything that Joey's saying.
Yeah. And to get to the nitty gritty, because all of us want answers, we want examples, we want ideas, we want to hear what others are doing. Joey, I'll go back to you with this question, and then I want to hear from Frank too. So what's a story of success or a story of a train wreck that you've seen recently, and why do you think it was?
Oh boy. So I have, gosh, I have both. Let's see.
Hey, I do too, Joey. That works out well.
I think go ahead and throw them out there. I think we all learn from mistakes. I love that. That's all good.
Go ahead, Joey.
Wonderful. So we had a workshop last week where we had a couple hundred nonprofits that were tuned in from all over the country, similar to what we're doing here today. And what we did is we just went on YouTube, our organization. And for those of you who don't know, we are an AV and video production company based in the Midwest in St. Louis, but we've recently kind of had the borders opened up and scale nationally, helping nonprofits all over the country produce their events. So we partner with, people like Darren and Michelle and Frank with the actual production elements. And so anyway, we went on YouTube to start off the seminar that we had, and we typed in virtual gala or virtual fundraiser, and I took the first one that I saw, and we just ripped it apart. And, and of course, not all of them look like that, but I mean, they were filming on iPhones. You could see the iPhone was moving. Someone's neck was chopped off. The audio was terrible. And they asked at the end, 38 minutes in was when they made their first ask for money. And so they had posted their success on Facebook and said, we raised $260 of our $380,000 goal. And so when we're reflecting and looking at that particular organization and you're analyzing why did they not meet their goal, it's because they didn't make an ask. And it's because they didn't create an experience, like Frank alluded to earlier. If your virtual gala or your virtual fundraiser looks like a Zoom call that Darren, you mentioned 10 minutes ago, everyone is having Zoom calls now. My grandmother is on Zoom. She's 84 years old. Everyone is on Zoom now. So if your experience doesn't feel like an experience and it just feels like a Zoom call with your boss, you're not going to have the outcome that, so it's, my 2 cents would be invest the money, make it a production, no different than what you do at your in-person experiences, make it look awesome. And so the success story would be an organization we just produced a gala for out of Chicago. Their goal was $300,000 and we did $280,000 net. So their gross goal was $300,000, we did $280,000 net. Which was 25% higher than what they did at their in-person experience last year. And so that was just an incredible success story. We all cried afterwards on Zoom. We did like a post-event wrap-up and everybody was bawling their eyes out. And I think it's because you created an experience, you give them something really exciting from a program standpoint. You start with your why. Why should people be involved? Why should they be excited? You add live entertainment at the end to celebrate. And you ask often, and you hire Darren, shameless plug for you. You hire auctioneers like Darren who make a dynamic ask.
Thank you, Joey. Frank, do you want to pick up on where Joey left off on that?
Completely concur on everything. The most important thing is starting with the strategy and your show flow. And we talk about this and what the run of show is going to be in the live space. That's going to be totally translatable to the virtual and hybrid space too. Because how the whole thing unfolds, how that experience goes is completely key. Content is absolutely king in this scenario. Timing, the entire timing. If you can achieve this type of program, being mission-centric, strategy-driven, have your message really clear, and making sure that you are asking for that money, at the right time. You don't want to wait 20 minutes in a 40-minute long program to be asking for your funds. Within the first 10 minutes, you really need to be there and to really be able to engage all of your viewers, right from the onset. I do think that what I have seen and what I am really designing in terms of these virtual experiences is that they're quick, they are to the point, they're direct, they're mission-centric, they are really strategic. We are asking for, for fun engagement right from the beginning, from the start. They have a lot of personality. They are fun. We leave the entertainment for the end. We try to be as best we possibly can in terms of production. So what I like to do is have as much pre-recorded as possible, leaving very little bit to a live element and making it have that feel of not only consummate professionalism, both from a production and from a development fundraising standpoint, but one that also then really allows you to deliver that content in a really polished way that mimics what we do in television as well. And we can get into some of those other things too. As we
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that is spot on. And I 100% agree about the pre-taped, everything that you can pre-record, do it. And it is a little bit of intimidating process. It is, but seek professionals, seek people like Joey. If you call him, he probably knows somebody who can help you. Ask your teenage son or daughter about a video editing software that they can use to make a great sizzle video that's 30 seconds long that you can put on Facebook. There, you have resources, and you'd be surprised how easy it is to put something together that's great quality, the sound and the vision. Darren.
So I want to jump in here, and I'm going to ask this question to both Joey and Frank, and potentially I might call on Freddie, so you can probably unmute your thing, because I'll get your opinion on this as well. Freddie's another benefit auctioneer up in Sacramento. But Frank, you said, short, quick, get it out there, and I'm all in about that ask. In events that we've done, we try to do the ask, every like 8 or 9 minutes to a different level. So it's not the same thing repeated 8 or 9 times, but just different levels, giving people the opportunity. And I'm wrapping that in as we recently did an event that we had to do because it was postponed back in early April. It was postponed. So they'd already sold tickets, they already had sponsorships, and they had to do an award show for the schools. So we did that event just a couple of weeks ago, just to kind of check the boxes that we did that. But because we had so many asks, and because it was the virtual concept, there was an opportunity to share so far beyond the normal reach. And it was just right here in Coachella Valley to get outside Coachella Valley. And they had over 56 new donors to their organization that were out of state that at no time would have been able to attend their event in Coachella Valley. But Frank, I want to ask, and Joey, the same thing. And Freddie, I want your take on this. What is your perfect timeline, not timeline, but time frame for an event? 30 minutes, 45, an hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Frank, I'll let you start.
So here's my take. I'm really good myself with 40 minutes. I think 40 minutes is a winning proposition. I think that you are able to pre-stream a pre-show, which you're able to recognize your sponsors, do some of that great stuff leading into your broadcast time. Your broadcast time is a good place with a 40-minute run. You can leave that entertainment for the end. I think any time after that 40 to 45 minute point, people start to pull away. I think that the engagement, what I am seeing and from what I'm experiencing and working with my clients, that's really that good level of time slot. Joey, what's been good for you?
So I'm going to echo what you said, and then I'll add one more component. I think that sometimes it's not necessarily the length of the event that's critical. You can have a longer event, but you have to be engaging and bringing, entertainment and excitement. I think you've got to be mindful of the pace of the event, where, I'm sure many of us have been to the event where you've got speakers going rogue because they're very impassioned and their heart's close to the fire. And so you just have to be mindful.
That never happens, Joey. Come on, that never happens.
Don't do that. But Frank, going back to what you just mentioned a second ago, is being able to do pre-recorded video elements. It is so incredibly huge because your event experts and professionals, we all get on pre-planning Zoom calls and we roll through the program to, so we know exact timing for everything. So echoing what I just said before and just reiterating, you could have a 30-minute program that's incredibly boring, like a dear family friend, their child just went through graduation. It was a 30-minute, very, very quick senior graduation. But the program, the pace was slow, people on their phones instead of professional production. And it was just, can I cuss? Half aid?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
With the S's at the end.
Yeah.
And you could tell, right? There wasn't any investment of time, effort, or energy into the production, and their event was only 30 minutes long. So you would, by these standards, you'd say, oh, great, it was a 30-minute event. It was short, but it wasn't engaging. And so remember, what's most important is the content that you have in between the start and the finish.
Yeah. I'm gonna
Freddie,
throw
you want
something out
to
there.
tee up your 2 cents on that, Freddie?
I think he added in the chat. Go ahead, Freddie. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I'd totally echo both Frank and Joey. Those are spot on in terms of the timing. I think 40 minutes is the sweet spot. 60 minutes is max. Went over 60 minutes one time and it just didn't need to go over 60 minutes. But definitely, Joey, the production is key. Getting that energy, getting the run of show right, getting the flow right. But yeah, 40 minutes, sweet spot. Totally on board with both Frank and Joey.
Awesome. Frank,
Hey,
when we
Michelle.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was going to offer up a scenario that's a little bit different because you've seen some things with gaming platforms and some people are doing some fundraisers where it's a longer period of time. So like a telethon is a great example. We're all familiar with that. There's a 4-hour window that a telethon is going and you're not expected to tune in for the whole time, right? You like chime in, maybe you make your donation, you see when your students are going to be performing, like, oh, look at Susie, she's so cute, she did such a good job, and then they're off to something else. So there's a case to be made for an event like that that's not necessarily just a 30-minute, 45-minute, production show, like a TV show, but then there's some possibilities for come and go as you see fit, right? But you still need to be making those asks incrementally throughout the whole production and make sure people know that it's okay to leave and come back or visit. Darren, the next question we have is how to plan your hybrid event in terms of resources for broadcasting your in-person event and engaging your virtual audience. And so I want to dumb this down for our audience, you three boys, because we all are speaking here and we understand what a run a show is and we understand the dynamics of all that. But what I want to do is give like a step 1, step 2, and step 3 of how to start, where to start, thinking about that we're going to have a small group of 100 people and then we're going to be trying to reach a bigger group of up to 400 people or more with a component. And how does that look like? What does that, Darren, I'm going to start with you.
I'm going to start off with kind of, Michelle, you and I have talked about it, is start with the end in mind. What's the goal? So many people kind of forget that. They just think, well, we're panicking. We have to have a fundraiser this year, this month coming up, but what's the end game? What is your ultimate goal? And I believe, and I can get Freddie, because I know you've done a few events, and I think I see Jim Nye on our call as well, both fellow benefit auctioneers. So many people we talk to like, well, we usually have done $250,000 at our event, but if we could just do a hybrid event and get to $100,000, that would be great. And I really think that's the wrong thought pattern. And Frank, we talked about this a little bit earlier as well, last week when we talked. Your goals ultimately really could go higher. There is so much more opportunity for you to leverage this media platform that we're doing when we're doing this live stream fundraising, a hybrid event, or just a live stream fundraising event and putting a whole production on, is really think about what the goal is and then kind of back into that. Frank, you want to comment on that?
So your borders really have grown. They can grow so exponentially. That's what's so magical about this. So if you're doing something local, let's say we're doing a fundraiser, we have 100 people in the room. If we are able to then go out and take a portion of that program and bring that virtual to an audience that is either in your local community, but hopefully well beyond it, that's where you really start to expand and magic starts to happen and donor engagement starts to happen greatly outside of the boundaries of where your event is being held. Now, most importantly, I think what's really a great avenue is if you are going to add in an entertainment component to your event. One of the things that I'm doing right now is I'm working with entertainers who have really huge and significant followings, either on Facebook and Instagram, and have 300, 400,000 followers. We are in a time of grace right now. And there are so many entertainers who want to be part of doing what we're doing and bringing all this good forward. So by partnering with an entertainer who has that kind of following, you are going to then be able to expand your base so exponentially that when that entertainer says, help me support XYZ join us in celebrating. Do anything you can do. Give anything you can give. Can you imagine what starts to happen with that? It's like an explosion. And this is a whole nother hot topic of conversation. And I'm probably opening a bunch of stuff up here. But these are the kinds of things that we're going to start moving into right now.
Yeah, it's true. And Frank, oh my gosh, yes, it is an explosion, because right when you said we're in a period of grace, this is so true. Everyone needs to be asking the questions you've been afraid to ask, because everyone's going to say yes right now. And I know that's kind of overstating, but not really. The sponsorship requests, so maybe you won't get $5,000, but you might get an amazing in-kind donation that they have and they want to support you with. Everyone is in a place of like, gosh, we really want to help. We want to do something. Everyone feels the need and the compelling drive to give and help, but we need to give them the opportunity to do that. And the stars too, right? People who've been saying no, 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 no. They're like, sure, I'll do a selfie video for your organization. Absolutely. That's a huge win. Huge.
There are so many incredible things that are happening right now, and we can get so deep into this. But again, on the hybrid side, to really bring it all in, is that if we have 100 people in the room, the most important thing is to really be able to engage, you know, your virtual attendees. Is mission's got to be really clear. You want those people seeing the same kind of content that you're having on screen in that room being communicated virtually as well. And if you are doing a silent auction, you want to have your guests at home be able to, on their mobile device, like working with great folks like at Greater Giving, who have a fabulous platform for, and I know Debbie's here, I saw her.
Oh, did you see Tracy? She peeked up over there too. I see her in the corner.
Yes.
She smiled. She was looking down and you said Greater Giving and she looked up. Hey,
exactly.
that's me.
I love it. So the nice thing is that you can use these platforms to bid for your silent auction. Then obviously for your fund the need, you want to be able to engage those people in the same exact way. So the people who are there inside that ballroom or wherever your event is going to be, you're going to be doing that same thing. And the people at home hopefully are being able to engage in that same level through, a great software program like a GG or others that are out there, that are doing great things as well.
Yeah, I'm going to kick it to Joey because he has a seeing is believing clip for us to share. Go ahead and cue this up, Joey, and tell us what we're going to see.
Sounds good. Ro is queuing it up now.
All right.
All right, let's do it, Ro.
We, like many of you, have had a wrench thrown into the plan over the last couple of months in terms of how we used to operate versus the new world and the new paradigm that we operate under. And so over the last couple of months, we've now done everything from drive-in movies to drive-in graduations and drive-in galas to now virtual events and virtual fundraisers in our studio, which has been really awesome. Just being able to help so many people and connect people during a time of social and physical isolation. So 4 things that you really need to have when producing a virtual gala. Number 1, you need a great technology platform. 2, you need a bidding platform. You really want to have a dynamic auctioneering team. And number 4, investing in a production team that can really help you pull the event together and make it a really incredible experience for all the attendees involved. What can an AV production company do for me that I can't do on my own? I am so glad you asked. Here's a little show and tell. Right here is called an overlay. These are all customizable, and those can be shown for every single speaker and presenter that comes up during your virtual program. Someone asked about sponsor opportunities. So I'm gonna step right here, and right over here, we've got our beautiful sponsors listed for our virtual event. It's so exciting. Or if you don't like that, how about that? So we can have these looping throughout your entire virtual experience so your sponsors have the visibility and engagement and brand recognition and awareness that they need. All right, so where is this all happening? Where am I standing right now? And what goes into actually producing a virtual fundraiser from a technology standpoint? Let's take a look. So as you can see in the studio, we've got the screens, the lights, the cameras, the audio boards, the video switchers, the computers, and of course, a tremendous team that it takes to pull off an incredible experience. That is the incredible Utopia team. But just briefly wanted to give you an in-depth look of the studio. This is one of our green rooms. Of course, you can see we've got overhead monitors. There are 4 cameras around me. We've got this area kind of spaced out so you know where to stand. And anyway, that just gives you an in-depth behind-the-scenes look. This is not something that you want to do as a DIY project out of your basement. All right, so a couple of different elements. Right now, I'm in a green room. And now, I'm on a beach. I'm swinging through, and I'm at your venue for next year. While our planning process has changed a little bit and gone from the conference room to virtual Zoom meetings, I think you'll be very refreshed when you're working with a professional team at how much of that responsibility from program and timeline management to all the essentials, the pre-recorded video, the live components are delegated off of your plate so you can focus on what you need to focus on, which is enrolling your donors, enrolling your sponsors, and getting your attendees excited.
Awesome.
Joey,
Great job.
that was extremely well done. Thank you so much for showing.
Great.
You look like you actually had a lot of fun doing that.
I'm much more energetic when I'm standing. I'm sitting today.
Okay. It does make a big difference. That was great. Wow, what a huge share. Michelle, you have any comments on that? That was spot on.
Yeah, that was great. And it was exactly gives us all, I think, I see people nodding, like that is so helpful to see it and to understand, aha. And I think the last thing Joey said in that was, it's not a DIY project, and it's not. And so if you need to sell your board on creating a budget for doing something like this with a production company, then you need to make sure that you use something like this video. Joey offered up a resource and he's willing to email it to all of you. That is kind of a planning tool. Joey, is that right?
Yes, so we have someone asked in the chat box earlier about pre-recorded video timelines. So there's 2 sides to our business. There's the event side, there's the video production side. And so if you're not working with a professional video company, use this pre-recorded video guidelines as a template to send out to your donors or your recipients or people that are putting together videos that are going to go into your virtual fundraiser. You want your videos to look consistent. So by using this pre-recorded video, guidelines sheet that our team put together, you can send that out to, everyone that's turning in a video for your virtual event.
Good. And can you in the chat, can you just add your contact info so that they can email you to get this fabulous tool?
Absolutely, I'm throwing that in
and
there
then
now.
Frank, I want to hear something that and then Darren, I'll get back to you, but I want to ask Frank a question. It's very compelling. The other day when we were talking to you, Frank, about this meeting today, you said something that I thought was really interesting, and you said that you've been primarily doing TV, that you're not doing a lot of virtual, and you're finding that your audience specifically is really better suited for broadcast television. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
So this is really interesting. We live in a market that skews a little bit older populace. And although people are really, working with Zoom and FaceTime, and we have grandparents who were Zooming and FaceTiming with who had not, formally embraced that technology. One of the things that I'm really doing right now is working in television fundraising space. So it's working with all this same kind of thing that we're talking about that we would broadcast virtually, that we're now going to bring to television. And to me, why I like this is that at least people in our neck of the woods really understand how to flip on the TV and watch the TV for a designated period of time.
There's no password required, right?
There's no password required. The production is beautiful. It's consistent. Everything is fully pre-recorded into this beautiful package, and we play it back on television. And it is marvelous. I love the space. Anyone who wants to talk to me about this, I'm happy to talk with you in depth. But the great thing too is you're giving the same exact way. You're giving with your mobile device. You are doing text to give. You are able to do all of these same types of tools, but we're bringing it to you into your home. Instead of watching it on your computer, you're going to watch it on television at a period of time. There's a bunch of other tools that go into it. There's a lot of promotion that goes into that, and I can talk more about that going into it. But I do love the television platform, and to me, it's very interesting and very exciting right now.
I'm glad you brought that up, and we're almost to Q&A, and so I want to launch our second poll briefly. There's another poll that we have. It's coming up. And this is to get our pulse of where we all are in terms of in-person events. So answer either in-person event. Are you planning to have an in-person event? You're still hanging on to hope for 2020, or you're not having an in-person event in 2020, or we're going to have a hybrid event pending local restrictions. So let us know where you are in this category. So you're either having an in-person and you're still hanging on that there's going to be one, or not at all, you're only doing virtual events for the rest of the year, or you're looking at possibly doing a hybrid event. So I'm gonna click that, there we go. And go ahead and share the results if you would. All right. So in person is, oh, look at 50-50. So we have, yes, we're still, 15% of us are hanging on hope for having an in-person event.
Keep hanging on to that.
I feel you. Yeah, we want to, believe us, yes. And then no, we are not having it. As 50% of you are not having one in 2020, which means you're going to do something virtually, a letter writing campaign, a no-show ball. There's a lot of variations, but we see that there's a big need for this type of thing that we are talking about today. So thanks again for that. And then we're going to have a hybrid event pending local restrictions. That's a high percentage too, 41%. So let's dig into that a little bit more. Frank, you mentioned the TV thing, and also Joey, your production company. Everyone's asking the same question in their head, and that is, how much does it cost for that? So Frank, let's start with you. And you don't have to say like this exactly, but give us an example of an organization you've worked with and what their budget looks like in order to have a televised fundraising event.
Okay, so basically the costs between television and virtual are very close. They're very, very close. So in the space that I'm working in from a virtual standpoint, once we're talking about software procurement, professional auctioneer, host, production, all the things that add up into this, this chasm of virtual, I'm seeing budgets really in the range of about $25,000 to $28,000. I think that's a very sweet spot for what we're seeing in the market. Television is very similar as well. Now, I would say those are good numbers to be working with, and there's variables for everything. One project I'm working on right now is another set of hybrid, and this is not a hybrid event. This is a unique experience. So let me tell you about this one. I'm doing an event right now that's going to have about 50 people in a room, and they'll be, socially distanced. And this is something I'm planning for the fall. They'll be in a room having cocktails and, socially distanced a little bit, but then we're going to create a studio in that room and then take that out virtually. So, I mean, that's something that we're working on. That you might have other costs because we're starting to involve food and beverage, and we're starting to involve building a studio. And Joey might concur on this, is that when we have to build a studio off-site, it starts to change a little bit different because we have to mobilize and bring in gear and do all these other things. Whereas it's a little bit more cost-effective when we're working with a studio that's already built. Do you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That we're capitalizing on something that's built, and we're not having to bring all this sound and lighting and video and labor and set it all up in an adjunct space. We're working to create that. So that's when costs start to get a little bit higher. Joey, what do you think?
Totally concur. I was just, Ro and I were going back and forth because we were nodding our heads as you were speaking in regards to, the hybrid experiences can be a little bit more costly because you are bringing basically everything that you all just saw in that video. We're taking that and transplanting it into your venue. So we are working with a lot of organizations in 2021 right now, as you mentioned in the, in the spring, in the summer, and the fall that are going to have scaled back events. They're not going to do the big 500-person ballroom anymore. They're looking for smaller, more intimate venues that don't have the same amount of overhead, if you will, with the $50 to $100 seated meals, but they still want to provide an in-person experience while also having an opportunity to bring those donors online as well. So we're doing the simulcast. We're just doing it a little bit more scaled back from the event perspective, from the actual venue perspective, which then allows them to invest and reallocate their resources. Instead of spending $80, $100 on a seated meal, we're spending 40 or 50, and we're reallocating those components to making sure that the auctioneers, the people that are making the ask, that they have the monitors and the cameras and the resources that they need so they can connect with people that are bidding from home and bidding in person.
Got it.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. That's a good segue into our Q&A. And so I want to check the chat. If you have a question, if you would type it in the chat, I'm going to go ahead and moderate questions for the group.
I'm gonna jump in on this one, Michelle, because Wanda had one earlier, and I don't know that we totally addressed it. I know Freddie got back to her. Wanda, what types of things should be pre-recorded? Whether it's your virtual, your hybrid, your live stream fundraising. Freddie kind of pointed out, your fund to need, the video message from your executive director, but basically everything, the one thing I think he may have left out, and Freddie, you can nod your head if you concur with me, but sponsor videos. When you're doing these hybrid events and you're offering that entertainment factor, you heard Joey talk about earlier, you want everything to be seamless. You want, you don't want these large 1.5, 2-minute gaps where we're dealing with technology. When the AV team has 4 or 5, 30-second, 45-second sponsor clips or a message from a big donor that we can add into it, it may not get played in the entire event. But when we have those pieces and they're backed up because they're pre-recorded, we can throw them in as we need them. To have as much content, Frank talked about earlier, content is everything. You want to have more content that you need. But the great part about the pre-recording, and I know Suzanne, I see Freddie on here as well, is a fundraising auctioneer. The virtual space for me has been so much more work, but I think there's so much more opportunity because we have now the opportunity to practice, to do pre-rehearsals. Most galas, we would show up, yeah, we have our notes and we would go through, make sure everything's going to happen live. Just to get it right, because we have the opportunity to do that. We don't have to wait. Well, we can't get into the ballroom until, noon the day before. We have this platform and this opportunity to practice everything and perfect everything. We can be so much better in this virtual space than we could live. It's definitely not the same. Live concerts will always be live concerts. Live theater, I've watched Hamilton over the weekend. I've seen Hamilton live. I will go live anytime over the virtual, but it was amazing because when I watched Hamilton online over the weekend, I saw more of the movie. I was able to really catch things that I didn't see in the live performance. And I think there's that same opportunity in fundraising with your virtual events. Your audience sees more. There's no bad seat in the house. For those who are choosing to stay home, it's on point. Michelle, I know I'm going over time. You're giving me that sign. Wrap it up.
I'm not actually. Something you just said about tuning in and actually catching things that you wouldn't necessarily see in a live performance. I think for a hybrid event, I think we should somehow be able to connect that virtual audience even to the in-person audience. What I mean by that is, how cool would it be to be sitting in the ballroom or at the golf tournament or whatever it might be, and then seeing a screen with all these faces on it that are also tuning in, so that you can kind of engage with them too and understand how many people are joining, even if it's not in person. I think that's fun. And something that Joey said I thought is amazing is that the budget, when you think about $25,000, $30,000, $35,000 to spend on a production for one of these virtual events that we're talking about, and or a hybrid event, we all kind of think like, gosh, that sounds like a lot, but not really. If we think about what I spend on a gala for 500 people at a venue, by the time I do the AV and the $175 per plate dinner, the VIP party, the alcohol, I mean, that's cutting my budget in a third to do that. easily a third of my, and that's for a big event. So it's all scalable is the point. And so even if if you're hiring a production company to do a little bit smaller, and I see Frank that you're nodding, that there's still a budget for every type of event and make it really professional looking. Frank,
absolutely. Yes, for sure. I mean, the great thing about this space is that you are able to, you're going to have some costs that are going to escalate and they're going to go up, and then you're going to save down to zero, on things that once existed as line items in your budget elsewhere. So it really is a trade-off. And somebody had asked, and I chimed back in on this, is that should we be charging for these types of events, to attend these events? And I'd like to address that. If you can avoid charging for this, it's way, way more enticing. This is a time of grace. This is the second time I'm saying this. If you can just ask people to attend and then entice them to support you by giving, on your device monthly, which you could open up an entire sustained giving program with this, or one-time donation. But if you can avoid charging and just invite people to really join your mission, that's more ideal in this situation. But I wanted to answer that question.
That's great. Before Darren, I know you want, okay, go ahead. You go, and then I'll talk to Jan.
So Frank, thank you so much for that. And I just want to give a different perspective on that. Because I don't disagree with that, because definitely when it's free, it's free to attend. There's really no barrier to entry. Anybody can get in, and that's huge. Mm-hmm. We did do an event where the event itself was 2 weeks after a kickoff party that we did. But we had a kickoff party before the event launched. We launched the event on a Wednesday morning. On Tuesday night, we did a kickoff party, and we invited all of our key stakeholders, our larger donors, the individuals that generally buy table sponsorships and then invite, 8 or 9 of their friends. We had a $1,000 ticket price per se to join our pre-party. And again, these were the stakeholders. These are the ones that trust you and show up and buy your tables every year, and they bought them year after year. But what we did with that is we shared with them the mission. We shared with them the event. We did a pre-play on kind of all the information that we are going to share over a 2-week period going up to the event. But we had 65 people show up for our pre-party event. Now, some half and whatnot, that's just the number on the bottom of the chat. But they raised over $50,000 before we got started from these people who give. But what we were able to do is entice those individuals that attended that night to share the event, to get out. Just because we're virtual, and this was 100% virtual, get the word out, send a message out on Facebook. I'm a member of this group. I work for this group. I believe in it because we're going to have our election on Tuesday. We're doing our big celebration on Friday. Talk about it and get it out. And we encourage them to share. The event last year, we raised almost $200,000 last year in person. This year, we did over $250,000. So our numbers went up significantly. There was no ticket price at the end. The ticket price was only for the VIP party. A quick piece on that, because I know we're running out of time. We've got 7 minutes to go. For the $1,000 ticket, it was a Zoom meeting. What was nice about that is everybody was there, and most people were there in couples. So you saw 2 people back and forth. We were able to communicate and engage with the individuals, but we also sent a really nice Harry and David gift basket with wine and cheese. And we just kind of had a celebration together with everybody in this Zoom format. So just a different perspective, Frank. I don't disagree. I just wanted to offer a different example that was successful.
You're 1,000% right. And you're 1,000% right, Darren, because the thing is, to make this really successful and to offset any of the costs that you do incur in doing these kinds of events, if you are able to engage your sponsors and your larger donors who are able to give in a significant fashion and have them come in, those are really that's really the way you're going to garner your sponsorships and cover all the costs associated with these types of events. So that's almost like a sponsor party. I'm just using other words because
I like sponsor party.
It's great. That's really what you're doing. It's like how we do a gala kickoff.
It's the VIP party. Yes.
Exactly. So that is definitely works. I think what I'm referring to is just the people who are not going to be your big level sponsors, to engage them. If you can avoid charging, it would be more ideal. On the sponsor end, I think that's a great idea and will help you get sponsors to, help cover those costs associated with any of these kinds of events.
And
So
then what Joey brought
Dan?
up earlier, you saw Joey in his video running the sponsors across the bottom on the
Yes.
right hand third, left hand third.
Yes.
There's no cost to do that. You're not printing banners. You're not doing all these different things you have to do. This is the best part about it. Your AV team, whether they're charging you, I don't know, $5,000 to do an event in their studio or $15,000 to set up a studio, there's no additional charge to run sponsorships and to run the banners. That's part of Joey, am I right? I mean, that's
You're
just
right.
kind of part of what you guys do. That's the beauty of having that team. Back to you, Michelle.
So we have another question and I want to get to it. Before I do that, everybody make sure that you look in the chat and click the link if you'd like to win the hot seat with Darren and I.
What is a hot seat? Tell them what it is, Michelle.
The hot seat is where you get to invite Darren and I to talk to us and put us in the hot seat about your fundraising event. It can be a virtual event. It could be an in-person event. It could be your fundraising strategy, whatever it might be. We do it on Facebook Live, so it's a lot of fun, and we invite people to join us and then chat in questions. So if you want to win a spot in the hot seat, there's a link in the chat to go ahead and click to register. And then we'll announce the winner on our Facebook group, which is Eventology Fundraising. Continue the conversation. It's a
on
private
Facebook
group.
Live, right? Now, our last hot seat contestant, we had a lot of fun with them, but she's like, she was nervous when she won. She was so excited, but she invited her whole board.
She's
so
here.
We had her.
Carolyn's
is she here? Is she here,
Yeah.
Sue?
No, Carolyn's here too. Carolyn.
Oh, Carolyn's here too. All right. Hey, Carolyn, how are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and Carolyn, you did as well. Sue did, but Carolyn as well. They're out of LA, and she had her executive director, her development director, and a board member. They were all there. They were all part of the hot seat. So Carolyn, thank you. You can't win again, Carolyn. No signing up again.
Bring them all. Yeah, bring your board. So Jan, I think you have a great question, and I want to open it up to Joey first, and then we'll bounce it to whoever else we have time. And by the way, we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to end on time at 1 o'clock, but we're going to take this over to Facebook Live in our Facebook group. And so anybody who wants to stay on and chat for a few more minutes and get the questions out in person, you can do that. We're going to stay on this Zoom meeting, and then we're going to convert it to Facebook Live and just right at 1 o'clock. So go ahead. I'm going to let Jan unmute yourself, if you would, and then ask your question. I think it's brilliant. Are you there? Jan from Living Desert.
Hi.
Hi.
Actually, it's Kippy LaFlame from the Living Desert. Jan is on vacation right now.
I see all of you. Hi, guys. Great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
So obviously, we've watched a lot of our competitors in the zoo business having their fundraisers. And every single one, although they were on 3 platforms, so they were on Facebook Live, they were on YouTube, and they were on their website, at one time or another, their platforms crashed. So what did they not do?
Joey, that sounds like a you question.
Pressure.
So yes, a number of things. So in the studio, if you saw from the video, we have 5 computers in studio at all time. And the way that we have a server set up is if one computer crashes, it goes to the next one. And so inevitably something happens with technology that is just out of everybody's control. And so you've got to make sure that you've got those backups in place. But one thing I'll mention is when we produce an event as a company that is companies that are experts in AV and production, every piece of our equipment is directly connected to the internet. We're not doing anything wirelessly. Everything is direct LAN. So you remember back in 10 years ago when everyone used to plug everything into the internet instead of wireless? Our cameras, our computers, our video screens, everything is plugged in directly to the internet. And so that kind of eliminates some of that latency or those connectivity issues. I would say having backups in place. And Ro, did I miss anything?
Just the delay with Facebook.
Oh, that's right. So, yeah, so using a platform that doesn't have any lag, which I know your auctioneers will appreciate. Some of these other platforms, Vimeo and YouTube, they're not really made for, and Facebook, they're not made for producing events. You just have to be mindful of the platform that you use, especially when you're doing the live auction because of that 20-second delay when you're using a social media platform to try and live stream your virtual event experience.
Okay, so one of the events in particular had 12,000 people that were viewing it. Now, did that have something to do with it?
No.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. Unless I knew exactly what they were using as far as their platform, I can't speak about the specifics of their event. It could have been something. I won't extrapolate or go on any further because I just don't know. But I kind of, going back to what Darren says, these platforms now are so robust. With so many people logging on from all over the world, I would say no, it's probably not the capability of the platform. I think it's more of maybe the platform itself that they chose might not have been the right technology platform for them to use for that specific event.
And I know, Michelle, we're at 1 o'clock. We need to go, but I want to just wrap up with that. With the virtual events, and Joey, everything you're doing, and Frank as well, you have the opportunity to practice everything. You can run the full event. If we're in a platform edit, we can run everything, practice all those pieces just to make sure there are no issues. So we went out on a limb when we went to you guys live. So thank you for asking the question, but your internet connection was great. We can hear you. But sometimes when you do that live and you don't know if you're calling in from the house, you're calling in from your cell phone on vacation from the Bahamas, if your internet connection's not great and you're calling in wirelessly, we're probably going to get more of a delay, and that causes problems. So practicing those things, when Joey said, he's going to give us he's going to share his spec sheet for things that for pre-recorded videos. Joey, you talked about this. We can have that same spec sheet for anybody that's on your platform that's going to be calling in remotely, just so they have the technology and they do the speed tests, they do the internet. All those things make a huge difference, and that's why you hire somebody like Joey, hire a professional AV team to have your back. Michelle, I know we got to go. It's 1:01. Yeah,
so anyone who wants to continue, we are actually on Facebook Live right now, so you're welcome to stay and chat. We're just going to open it up to chit chat and any questions you have. Frank and Joey, everybody, let's give Frank and Joey a big hand because they were awesome.
Thank you guys. You guys were awesome.
So
Thanks,
much fun
guys.
to have you. You guys, you're welcome back anytime. In fact, I'm already thinking of reasons I need to call you both.
So Frank, on this, I want to shout out. So in the chat bar, Frank, and maybe you even want to do it again, and Joey as well, right at the bottom of the chat, put all your contact information. If you guys, anyone on this call would like to reach out to either one of them, they're more than happy to take those calls. Frank, again, personally, thank you so very much for joining us. And Joey, all the way from St. Louis, thank you very much. You've shared some invaluable information. And everyone, please know this entire webinar will be on our YouTube page. It'll be on our Facebook page. Eventology, continue the conversation. On behalf of myself, Darren Deese, and my partner, Michelle Gilmore, calling in from San Diego, thank you all for joining us. And please join us on our Eventology Facebook page. Continue the conversation. We're going to go Facebook Live. I have to figure out how to do that.
All right, we'll see you there.
Thanks again for joining us. Thank you all. Have a great time. Joey, Frank, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Nice.
I'm going to reach out to you.
Freddie, thank you very much for calling in. Appreciate all of you.
So,
thanks, guys.
Anybody who's still here, you're welcome to stay. We are going to stay on this Zoom call. We're actually on Facebook Live right now. And I'd love to open it up to somebody who was watching and get your feedback. And if there are any other burning questions, because last week we had 3 or 4, the last time we had one of these, Darren, we had 3 or 4 people who sent us some questions afterwards. And I was like, oh, this is such a good question. I wish we could share it with the whole group. So if you guys have something that you want to ask, go ahead and unmute yourself and throw it out there. I think, Carolyn, I saw a good question from you. Do you have to unmute yourself, love?
Unmute, Carolyn. Unmute.
And this is
there
my
you
question.
go.
All righty.
I love that voice. Opera right there. That just says opera, Carolyn.
Oh, dear. Listen, this is basically toward Frank, because at the very beginning of our session, you spoke about how philanthropy has grown by 20% in 2020. And what—
Frank, you're on mute as well.
Sorry,
Frank's-
that was actually Joey's brilliant
Yeah.
update.
Okay. Well, Joey, all right then, here we are. So this is my question. In our searching for fundraising since COVID, what we have found is most people say, I'm just going to put our money into helping out the COVID situation rather than in, I guess we think of us as entertainment as an opera company. So what is your experience about what percentage goes into entertainment and what percentage and other things as well as to the COVID help?
Sure. So I don't know if it was you or someone else that asked a question in regards to how many of those transactions were COVID related. And I actually looked up the quote because I was interested. So of the 28% increase, which was $7 billion raised in 2020, there were 750,000 transactions by individual donors to 100,000 charities. And so I know Frank and Darren probably would be able to touch on this, but I really think right now, and Ro just said this to me just a second ago, Ro's our production manager here in studio with me. I think right now it's about the message you're sending out. Like let me give you one. Blues. And so one thing that they're doing for this foundation is they have all of the Cardinals players that are coming into our studio and the Blues players, and we're going to pre-record something that we refer to as an invitation video, where it's like, hey, please come and support us. Here's what we're doing. And then we're showing all these kids at the different children's hospitals of the people, the recipients that we're going to be supporting. And so when Petrangelo or Tarasenko, well, Tarasenko's no longer with us, but you've got Kyle McCullough, all these different Cardinals and Blues players making that ask on behalf of the foundation. At that point, it doesn't even matter where the money's. I mean, sure, you see the little kids and you're like, oh my God, my heart melts. But what you're trying to do right now as an organization is you have to tell a compelling story that makes people feel so good about giving, right? And so entertainment and arts, you're giving kids a creative outlet. I don't even know, now I'm just kind of spitballing, but you're giving these kids the freedom to express themselves during a time where they're physically isolated. They're at home, they're in their living rooms, they haven't been able to go to school. And so how can we share that story of, it's not just about them stepping on stage, you are setting them up for their futures by contributing to our organization, because otherwise, if they're not here, they're at home depressed because they're not engaging in the arts.
Yeah, that's great.
Wow, Joey, you get 13 points for that. That was awesome.
I'm sorry, I just went on a long tangent. I hope that was all
it was great. It was great. Carolyn, I hope you took all that in, because that was amazing.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
I thank you, Joey, for your words. I don't feel, okay, so there was 700,000 and 100,000, 700,000 givers and 100,000 charities. So that sounds really good. So I guess we just keep doing what we've been doing then, except I love the point about a really good story.
No, take the opportunity, do things differently.
And
Here's your chance. You don't need to do anything like you've been doing. Do it differently.
Debbie Roth, I see you have something to add, and I'd love you to share it out loud, unless you want me to read it from the chat, and that's okay too.
And okay, so full disclosure, I work for a software platform that is supporting these types of events. Can you guys hear me? Do I have everything on?
How are you, Debbie?
Great. Welcome.
Anecdotally, we have seen museums, we have seen symphonies. We had two in Portland that did over $1 million each right at the beginning, before anybody was even doing anything that had the great messaging or anything. People were so concerned. What I'm seeing now, I'm watching a group out of Virginia that's ramping up for theirs, and they have done individual performances and pushed that out online. They have done some children's classes, and of course, with permission, shared some performances. All of this is stuff that you can be doing beforehand. And then messaging, I mean, truthfully, you're helping people with their mental health through this time.
Yes.
Music is a huge consolation as we're all shut up. I can tell you that there's been several groups that they did their event and then they had a short music performance, and I have played that performance over and over again as I'm working, because I am sick of these four walls.
Yeah.
And, you know, haven't been anywhere, done anything much. And so, you know, we're not seeing anything. And listening or watching the one symphony that was in Virginia, the different artists were all their harmony pieces.
Oh.
You know, so they played their musical instruments and did several pieces of harmony. And I don't know how that magic was done, and they're pushing it out on Facebook. You need to make sure your licensing's in place for anything that you're playing, but share what you're doing to keep the message going. And you'll stop getting people, well, we're only doing COVID stuff. This is a COVID thing. And when we want out of our house, I mean, because, you know, we know that people with mental health issues have committed suicide and, you know, are really struggling. And heck, even those of us who might be called normal, I don't know how many of those there really are, but those that are called normal, we have struggled. I mean, I've had days when it's just been all I could do to get out of bed and start talking to people again. It's like, oh no, not more.
Yeah. And you bring up such a good point, because if you are in the arts organizations, you have a fear that it's not important enough to fundraise. We are not important enough maybe to ask for money right now, and it's inappropriate to do so. But you're absolutely right. It's a mental health, students, kids, everybody, even adults too. Frank, I'm gonna toss this one to you. In your production, what do you see in terms of entertainment that is just hitting the mark? What I think she brings up a good point. You have to have a piece of entertainment that's really, you know, beautiful, right?
So Debbie Broth brought up Portland. What did you bring up? Were you going to talk about the Oregon Symphony? Were you referring to the Oregon Symphony? I know, like, for example, Oregon Symphony used Storm Large, you know, who's a fabulous performer, who's a great following. You know, she was integrated into that performance. There are some incredible New York talents who are Broadway icons, cabaret icons, who fill symphonies, who are absolutely giving of their time, maybe with a little bit of honorarium behind them. These are people who have 100,000, 200, 300, 400,000 followers in their social media, who with grace, you know, are joining in the fundraising efforts of these organizations and lending their talents and doing a couple of, maybe just doing one very well-known number and giving a little bit of endorsement. But the biggest thing that talent is doing is getting behind the pre-planning, pre-production, and saying, please join us for this. Please, my followers, join me in lending a hand and whatever's comfortable for you in supporting this organization. I'd love for you to tune in. I'll be doing this wonderful performance or song. And that really catapults you to a completely different level. And so entertainment does not need to be this whole long, drawn out thing. Less is more at times. It's what it is that you're doing and how you're delivering that. And that's what's really moving the needle.
I'd love somebody who hasn't spoken yet, if you're out there, who's used social media and used influencers to push their virtual event or upcoming event. Anybody have some good experience with that? Because that brings up such a good, we could do a whole session just on that for sure.
Sure, it's
Anybody
a great
have
subject.
Some fabulous influencer stories out there?
Wow, I'm surprised. I thought somebody would definitely jump in.
It's Debbie again. We had, one of our salespeople sent me a live stream recording that shows celebrities such as Brian Williams opening the auction, and then he says something a little bit later. They had John Legend, they had Sting, and they had a couple other celebrities that they came on and they did a short number. And you know, in the midst of the program, it was phenomenal. It was, you know, and obviously it was professionally produced. Yeah. But these people were tuning in from their home studios, and you could see their mics, and you could see, and the music was absolutely stunning.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Debbie, thank you. Thanks for joining us, Debbie. I appreciate it. Thanks for getting on
Debbie,
our call.
feel free to put your platform and what platform do you work with?
Greater Giving.
Oh, it's Greater Giving also.
Yes,
We've got all the Greater Giving folks here.
they
That's
do. They
fabulous.
got the whole support team.
We
That's what
lurk.
Greater Giving does. They all support.
And this is not sponsored by Greater Giving, y'all. We don't
Not
have
yet. Not
Yeah,
yet.
not yet. We're working towards it. No, I'm just kidding. You know what? I have somebody to introduce real quick. Patty Smith is the founder of an organization called Arts Bus Express. I happen to sit on the board as well. And I'd love to, just because we were talking about the arts and what the need that we're trying to fundraise is very different, but it's something I think that's compelling also. Patty, do you want to unmute yourself and say hello? It's along the bottom on the left-hand side. Just click that microphone to unmute. You see it? You're still muted, love. Let me see if I can unmute you. Stand by.
I think Abby would have to. She's admin, right?
Oh, yeah. Abby, maybe you can. You see it at the bottom? We'll work on it, Patty. Who else has a question while we're waiting for Patty to find her unmute button? Anybody else? Sue, I've seen you on here a few times, right? Sue Fromkin, nice to see you. What are you up to? Or you think you're on mute? Abby, if you're there, you can maybe unmute everybody.
Okay. No, we're in the desert in Palm Springs, so you know, a lot of our people are gone, so we're not really planning anything for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not till the new year.
You
And right now,
hi, Patty, just 1 second. So, Sue, you bring up a good point too for everybody to remember that while we're not doing active fundraising, if you're in the desert or if we're just kind of on a hard pause waiting for the state restrictions to lift, this is a great time to plan. This is an amazing time to create your budgets, make your guest list, get addresses, get everyone's current addresses uploaded into your database, because that is a valuable less time. And when do we ever have time to do that as fundraisers, right? So this is a great time to oil your machine. Patty, hi.
Hi, I finally found unmute.
Very
Please
good.
forgive me, my computer skills are a little limited.
You're all good. I just thought you might want to say a little bit about Arts Bus Express and what we're looking to do, since it's compelling to fundraise. Go ahead.
The usual way of operating is to fund field trip transportation.
See you, Joey.
Take care.
Go ahead,
Thank
Patty.
you all so much.
Arts and sciences for the educators of San Diego City and County schools. And thus far, we've sent about 230,000 children on a ride to the arts and sciences. But the buses are not rolling right now. And so we are still planning to provide experiences. It's about the experience for the children of San Diego. And we are linking arms with the venues and providing a virtual interactive experience for classrooms. And September 1, we plan to pilot at least 6 of those virtual interactive field study trips.
Awesome. Yeah, so we're going to bring the field trips to the kids, because as you pointed out, Debbie, and you mentioned too, Frank, that we need to have arts in our life. We need to have science and experiences, behind the scenes tours at theater companies. And the actors love to do that. Of course, follow me while I take you backstage and give you this tour. You know, I mean, there's so many great things that we can do, but it's really about tapping into your community and your resources for sure.
All right. Well, Michelle, on that note, I'd like to ask the question, because you're talking about pre-recordings, and what portion of a presentation like we're doing, which we want to be interactive, is to be pre-recorded and the other is to be live?
Frank, that's a good one for you.
you know what? I was multitasking. Ask that question one more time.
I love that you're honest about that, Frank. Thank you.
Multitasking.
Yes.
Multitasking, totally. Ask
Okay,
that
you
question.
totally are.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks, Frank, because I don't know if I can word it exactly like this.
Okay.
But what my question is that because we want this to be an interactive experience with the students once they tune in to the field study trip, what portion of that presentation needs to be or could be uh, live and the rest pre-recorded so that we are looking professional, because we're giving a lot of the opportunity to the venue, and so we lose some of that control.
So this is a much longer answer to a question that you're posing, and I'm happy to delve into it with you. But as it relates to the subject matter of what we're talking about, what you want to do is you want to try to pre-record as much as you possibly can and have limited live elements. Most of the time in our space, the live element is the host / auctioneer, like somebody that would be in the position of leading, you know, the whole entire, you know, program. But the rest of it can remain, you know, pre-recorded if possible. Like Darren would be the live element. If you can keep Darren the live element and keep everything else pre-recorded, that's the most ideal. To address all the things that you're talking about, I'd have to really delve into it and learn a little bit more. And I'm happy to chat about with you offline, you know.
That's a good example. That's a great example. Anybody else have a question for our team here before we sign off for the day? A couple of Steves I see down there.
Will this be recorded, Michelle?
Yes, in fact, we're going to have the recording of this available to everyone who registered. So we'll send it to you via email. It'll
Even
also
this extended part, this extended part as well?
Yes, this extended part as well. We're recording all the way through. And then we're going to house this on our YouTube channel, our Eventology YouTube channel, and it'll be available on our Facebook page. All right, guys.
Thanks for having me. It was great to be with you.
Frank, thank you. Thank you very much. Carolyn, thanks for coming back. Jillian, good to see you. I haven't seen you, but good to see you on here, Jillian.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.
I see you now. I see you. Reality Rally, what was it? How many years ago, Jillian?
It was, we started 10 years ago, and hopefully next year is going to be our 10th.
No, what year were you on Reality? What year were you on Survivor?
2008.
There it is, Survivor 2008. Wow, that's awesome.
So Darren, call me sometime. I want to talk to you about Zulu and Yala.
Okay, thank you. I saw your email. I will. Thank you very much.
All righty. Thank you, guys. Very interesting. I mute myself so that I'm not looked at the whole time, and video myself off. So thank you. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jillian.
Good to see you guys. Have a great day. Thanks all.
Debbie, thank you for tuning in with us today. I appreciate it. I appreciate your comments.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. So did you see Casey's Zoom? Abby, you can stop recording.